everybody. You're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, streaming. And it's been 2 weeks since we've been with you in a live stream, but it hasn't been 2 weeks since we've been on the podcasting platform. I don't know how you want to characterize it. Steve, you on Caleb's show.
Yes. I was so I was super chuffed, I guess is the word if I were English, but I was so excited to be, on the show with them for their, especially it was their halftime show, the big middle of the year. These are the best books so far of 2021. And it was fun to actually try and figure out what those were for me. And I think I cheated a little bit, and I'm really sorry because I briefly mentioned a bunch of other ones, and I was not supposed to. So.
It's okay because I always do that too, and it's nice having somebody else break the rules first because then I don't get the side eye from my co-host.
Yeah. I could feel the stares through Skype, through Zoom, but no, it was a ton of fun. I always love listening to you guys, and it was fun actually getting to be on the show with you.
Well, we loved having you, and yeah, folks can go find that it's Southern Fried Geekery podcast, just same places you find CBB. So make sure you're downloading both.
Yep.
And Steve wasn't the only one who was somewhat promiscuous, because the past Tuesday I was on the Movie Bears podcast talking about the film that we're going to talk about at the beginning of the show, which is The Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
And what really knocked me out was I was on with them when the first Suicide Squad movie came out. And when Will said it came out in 2016, my jaw dropped. It just doesn't feel that long ago. But
5 years ago, and I mean, we could talk about it, but I do have to say, if you look at the Harley Quinn in that movie and the Harley Quinn in this movie, I mean, if you talk about character arcs and development of a character and an actress, journey with a character, amazing.
All right. Well, we gave you a little bit of a hint there. We're going to be talking the Suicide Squad, and then we're going to be talking about a bunch of comic books, because that's what we do. And I know we've been doing things where we're kind of, displaying what geek stuff we've gotten recently. Haven't gotten that much, but I've been active. For some reason, I went to two. I don't want to say for some reason, it's, out of the realm of possibility.
Know why.
With the return of concerts and outdoor concerts, it just seems that the schedule just aligned with a bunch of soft rock concerts from tribute bands that I've been able to see. So I saw an Eagles tribute band, and I saw on this past Sunday the Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young tribute band, Laurel Canyon, and I got my rock in. I guess you could say that. But in some geek gets, I did get the second Batman: The Long Honeymoon DVD. Still unopened. Have to get to that.
The Long Honeymoon?
The Long Halloween.
I was going to say
The Long Honeymoon is Elvis Costello's song, and that's over here.
That would be a mashup.
I finally got some trivia contest wins again.
I saw that.
Yeah, I finally got some. I missed out on 1 week, and then I got nothing. Though I got the right answers, I wasn't quick enough on the trigger or whatever. But some of the auction wins I got X-Men 54.
This is nice.
I had one issue as a kid of X-Men from the 60s, and that just evaporated in my hands, but this is the only pre-new X-Men book I have apart from a reprint, so that's kind of cool. And I got a one of the key Jim Lee issues, the Batman Natasha Logan team up in the 1940s, and
I love that gray suit. I think I'm the only person who does, but I love that gray outfit.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's killer. Yeah, I think, like I said, I'm the only person who does, but it's one of those things.
Okay.
The old black widow suit.
That's cool. And then I got a comic that I feel every gay male superhero comic book fans should have at some point in their life. Yes, I got my hands on a giant-sized man thing. Geez,
Yep.
And then last week was the Funko's online convention, and I did get TDK from the Suicide Squad.
Ooh,
Nice.
And this awesome Dr. Fate.
that's gorgeous.
You can see that, yeah. So I did get a few things, but it wasn't like the onslaught of the last 2 times we got together.
Well, hey, we actually have some people, in the audience tonight. We've got David Toby. Hello, hey boys. He says. We've got Tony Gilkinson joining in. Hey guys,
Yes.
I'm getting billed twice in 1 week. Yes, you are.
As everyone should.
And of course, we've got John Westhoff. Giving the horns.
Yeah.
So hey, John. And David mentions as well. Honestly, I would watch Batman: The Long Honeymoon. Yeah, I mean that sounds like it would be a very interesting kind of maybe a sequel to sort of like a what if Batman and Catwoman kind of marriage that actually happened and lasted.
Or you could just go read Batman and Catwoman.
Now,
Yeah,
Caleb,
or you could just read that.
Did you leave the room to bring in some vinyl?
Well, I was going to, but then I realized I didn't have time to get. Get back. So if I can get excused, 'cause I thought I had it up here, but I left it downstairs.
Be excused.
I don't know. Steve, can you cover while he gets it, or
I can vamp Britney Spears style.
Possibly just describe what it is, because it's really freaking cool.
Yeah,
it's really...
I'll just describe it. So yeah, I did grab some new vinyl. That's been my new kick because the hubby decided he wanted a vinyl player, and I took full advantage of that. But I picked up 2 new ones this week. The first one it's Gary Clark Jr. It's one of his albums, which got Best Album of the Year or Best New Artist or something a few years ago. It's a little bluesy, but it's more like a mix of blues and funk and hip hop, and just Southern soul. It's amazing. So if you haven't listened to Gary Clark Jr., go check it out because it's amazing. But for me, the main thing, and it's something I've been wanting for a while. I'm a huge Judas Priest fan, as you know, most gay boys are, but I love Judas Priest. And so I finally have the Judas Priest album that has Bill's favorite song on it. So I now just launching Judas Priest on vinyl as loud as it'll go. Just Painkiller, that drum intro on Painkiller is amazing. So yeah, that's been my house for a week. It's just freaking like Judas Priest. Like, it's amazing.
That's so cool you have it on vinyl. I never had a copy on vinyl because that was the CD era.
Yeah.
And I was even surprised it came out on vinyl at this point, because 1990 was when a lot of major releases stopped having vinyl releases that year. And for people who aren't familiar with Painkiller, Judas Priest were coming off their absolute worst album.
Yeah.
Apart from the Ripper Owens stuff, and the Ram It Down. It's Ram It Down is so awful. Oh my God, it's just so bad. And then for them to return with this, and this really should have been the rebirth of the band and not the temporary end of them. There are some threads that were later followed up just by virtue of Halford and Scott being in Fight. And it seems Fight, people don't remember Fight at all.
Yeah.
And they toured for 4 years. You got 2 albums and an EP out of them. There's some good stuff there, but I really thought Painkiller was going to be their rebirth, and unfortunately it was the temporary end to them. But that's way cool. You have that on vinyl.
Yeah, and I love it. And like I said, being a huge music nerd. I resisted the urge to get vinyl, but for me, I'm the kind of person that it's just like mixing a nice cocktail. Yeah, you can go just take a shot, but there's something special about the actual process of mixing a cocktail. And the same thing is true for listening to vinyl. There's something special about getting everything set up, pulling it out of the sleeve, having it, setting it down. Just that there's something to that that's magical and a little hipsterish, I know, but I love it. It's just that kind of essence. But have you had a chance to read the Halford's autobiography?
I got interrupted because of JMS's, but I have it here actually, right here,
right at hand.
And I am on page 169.
Well, he talks about in the autobiography.
Yeah.
If anybody is a Priest fan, and they should read this, but
Yeah.
he actually talks about making the album and coming back, like off of that, the worst album of their life, which
Yeah.
was at the peak of his alcoholism and stuff, from the way that he talks about it, and it just
Yeah.
had a really big impact on the band, and it messed up their whole flow.
Yeah.
And then to come back from Painkiller when he was getting clean and getting everything back together, dealing with some love affairs that he had in his life. At the time he was closeted, not closeted, and living in Phoenix and doing a lot of like crazy shit in Phoenix when they made that album. So when you get to that part, it's an interesting read. I won't say it's fun, but just knowing the history around it makes it really cool. And then
and that's and also it's just asking about, and that also interweaves with the trial, as well, right? That period of time, yeah.
And then last but not least, I'm not an action figure person, but normally I have my camera set up so they can see the other side of my office, which is the nerdy side. But to hold on to some nerd cred, I brought in my leader action figure. So I've just got evil behind me, cheering me on. So that's my unless you're a Cowboys fan, you like Felix Jones, my signed jersey behind me. But I'm just gonna have leader open.
We've got a couple more comments here. John Restoff. I thought Ripper was on Painkiller. Then Unbreaking the Law can include Judas Priest. So yeah.
This is the moment John Westoff died in Bill's heart.
Is that? Did a bell ring? Did an angel get its wings? No. Somebody's dead.
Legal talk through the prism of metal gods.
Still not going to happen. But...
It's not going to happen. No. Yeah. Awesome. Sorry, inside baseball talk.
Right. like four humans know what that means.
Yeah.
So wrong.
Steve, did you get anything, or are you still just books?
Did I get anything? No, of course not. I've been basically holding down the fort here in Winston-Salem. The hubby is off working at an opera in Colorado. So I've basically been babysitting my four-legged babies, and they, at least one of them, needs a lot of attention all the time. Yeah. So if I seem distracted, it's because I'm listening for him to have gotten stuck on the couch downstairs because he's blind and he can't jump down on his own. How
are you doing with the quail solo?
Pretty good so far. I haven't accidentally lost any. And I've been able to change their sand and change their bedding and feed them and give them water. So they're all still alive and making a lot of eggs, like a lot of eggs. So I don't think I can make that many quiches.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to get into the cinematic world?
Can I make a segue?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Speaking of birds, does anybody hate birds as much as James Gunn does? Because he killed a shit ton of birds in Suicide
Squad. Yeah, it even starts off with one. Oops, spoiler.
From the very beginning.
Yeah. I possibly, yeah.
That was my segue. That's all I had.
Okay.
Who made the movie The Core? If anybody remembers that one, there's a big plot point in the first 5 minutes. 1999, 2001, something like that. The Core. All the birds die because the gravitational force of the Earth goes all out of whack and they fall out of the sky and die. So that was
whoever
that director
not
is.
Ringing a bell. No,
not James Gunn.
Not James Gunn.
James Gunn.
All right, Steve, when we usually go to the movies, we start off with a plot description from you. So why don't you get going there and talking about The Suicide Squad.
The Suicide Squad. So not to be confused with Suicide Squad, no definitive article. This is a follow-up spiritual sequel, not exactly a spiritual sequel. It's a next issue, as if done by another writer, in terms of DC Comics. It really is. It's volume 1, volume 2. Here you go. Basically, it picks up with a crew of very obscure and interesting villains getting picked by Amanda Waller to go and storm a beach. Don't know too much about it. Most of these villains, if you know about them, you're a better man than I, because a few of them I had never heard of before. These are C-list, D-list, F-list, if you can think of them, that are being picked for this. We do have some returning characters from the first or from the other Suicide Squad with Harley Quinn and Colonel Flag. They get dropped at the island, and on their storming of the beach, some things happen, and then rewind back and have a completely second crew of other D-list villains that also then get to storm the island. Lots of craziness ensues. All sorts of wonderful dialogue happens. People get killed a lot in very messy ways. Essentially, they're there to destroy a project that is happening on this island. Colton, I can't even pronounce it right. Corto Maltese, which is a famous DC island. Lots of things have happened on it. It's always used.
First appeared in the films in Batman '89.
Really?
Yes, when Vicky Vale is showing her photographs, they are from Corto Maltese. Yeah,
obscure but excellent. That's wonderful.
If it's not going to make me a dime, I'm going to know it, folks.
But their mission, of course, goes a little bit awry. When they agree in a way to help some revolutionaries take back the island from a military coup that's taken over the government. But of course, these are a bunch of villains. A bunch of craziness will completely happen, and it ends with a massive, very cool kaiju battle, of course. It's a lot of fun, and don't get too attached to most of the characters because, well, you never know what might happen because it is a Suicide Squad.
Let's just say it's impossible to talk about this film without spoiling stuff. So if you haven't seen the film, leave, come back. It's cool. Yeah. No big
warning. Spoiler warning.
Before we get into the discussion, I need to ask you guys, how did you see the film? Because this is only my second return trip to an actual theater. And it was very frustrating and weird because I had to plan it out, going to a 3:10 matinee and checking every hour to see what the attendance would be like, and going in an N95 mask. It was a weird.
Yeah.
Because the only time I've been to the theater otherwise was the Sparks Brothers in the halcyon days of early June, and when we were a little spoiled for a few weeks. So I was just wondering with the two of you whether you saw it on HBO Max or you actually went to the theater.
We actually saw it at home on HBO Max on Thursday night when it premiered at the same time as it premiered in the theaters. And it was definitely helpful because, my husband was home before he had to leave for Colorado, so we got to watch it together. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had a chance to do that before he had to leave. So, it was great that we got to see the movie together. It was great that it was on HBO Max, so we didn't have to go to the movie theater for it. I would still love to see it in the movie theater, but again, especially with the resurgence down here in the South of the Delta variant, we don't have a mask mandate yet in our county, but I'm sure it's coming back, I should say, because anyway, that was me.
So we actually went and saw it in the theater, which was really fun. It was kind of a reward. I had a big ethics test for law school this past Wednesday, so that was kind of my
PRE.
Yeah, God, fuck that thing. I never want. I hope I pass.
I hate taking that fucking test.
Yeah, I hope I pass. I'm not doing it again. I'll go.
I know you come away feeling that you're like in a daze, but you can say I can tell you did better than you think.
I hope so.
Did you have like weird questions about judicial responsibilities, and because they were like, I've never been taught this ever. You know, on a few of those questions. So I was like, well, I haven't answered C in a while. Yeah.
There were some judicial ethics. Luckily, the program I used to study had some of those, so I felt like I got them. I felt okay. But if you ever take a test like that, it's very much like, oh, there's 2 right answers, so pick the best one, and it sucks. But that was kind of to go to the movies and see the show was kind of a pat on the head reward from the Hubs. He was like, let's go check this out. And so, Steve made a good point. Like, I'm in Arkansas right now. Besides Florida and Texas, we're a hotbed of COVID, but we have a local theater that is very, very on top of things. They come in, you have to pick your tickets online. And once you sit down, like whatever seat you buy, they automatically X out the seats next to you. So for social distancing purposes, so they're giving up seats. And they come in and wipe everything down between showings. So like we felt okay going. And so we went and checked it out, and it was a lot of fun. So it's beautiful on the big screen. Like, so yeah, Steve, if you can go see it, if you get a chance, there's something about seeing it in the high definition on the big screen, because the film, and you guys have seen it, so I think you'd agree, it's larger than life, and there's so many moments that just have this punch that just when it's on that screen, just hit. It's an event, right? Like, that's what I said to Steve when I came back. I was like, well, that was an event. Yeah, and I think one thing where you really come away with an appreciation by seeing it in the theater is the sound editing. Yeah. Especially beginning beach scenes and then another scene later on. And they did a hell of a job, and I don't think you would have that full experience at home. But I also felt like if you still were able to see it at home, and that's the only sensible cinema safe way to see it, right, you're fine. You're still going to get a good experience. There's just a few nuances that we had as kind of added touches. Well, and if you have a decent sound system on your home theater, then especially in a James Gunn movie, because the soundtrack for a James Gunn movie is part of the appeal. Just because he plays with old music, music from the past couple decades that he really loops them in. So if you have a decent sound system on your stuff, you're still gold, because that's half the fun of a James Gunn movie.
Yeah, and Caleb, our movie theaters used to be, used to have the same practices that yours are still doing right now, but they stopped in June, and now I'm hoping that they will come back to that, because when we saw Black Widow, basically that was the weekend that they had stopped doing the separation of the seats. So you're still buying them online, but they didn't X out the ones to either side of you. But now I'm hoping that they start doing that again, because, I'd love to take advantage of my my AMC movie pass, because my A-list, not movie pass bad, but A-list, because it's great.
But I can also tell you that, even living in a state which has 71% over 18, vaccinated, or at least first shot, I still did not feel the level of comfort that we probably should at this point, if everyone was diligent and sensible.
It could be worse. We could be in Australia. David says he was booked a seat in drive-in, but then got locked down again. So Yep. A couple of the states in Australia have gone back to lockdown. I think Canberra did as well, because they had their first case in a year. Yeah. So the entire city locked down this week, which I'm like, if any city in the U.S. had one case after a year of no cases, show me. Is it Barrow, Alaska? Because honestly, there's just nothing. Like, people are getting it everywhere.
Arkansas has no more ICU beds right now, and we have people suing because they don't want mask mandates. They're trying to call a special session and pass a law that will be unconstitutional, but it will prevent private business owners from passing enforcing a vaccine mandate for their employees and mask mandates. So I've never seen a legislature try to rip away local control, or try to Republican legislature at that try to come out and say like independently owned businesses can't make their own decisions. It's insane. Yeah, like I feel like I'm in the fucking never down here.
I really just beside everything, you just have to stop back and like, do you really want to be in a death cult? Because that's what you're in. Serious. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what this is right now. You'll do anything for your child. You'll take a bullet for them, but you won't take a needle. It's insane. It's insane. I've always thought in the past where you did have examples like Nazi Germany of mass hysteria, and how could that happen? And we're seeing it. It's so strange. It really is.
I mean, I would say Reconstruction history in the U.S., which, by the way, is barely taught at all in most high schools, probably is a very good example of what happens when you have mass hysteria from somebody or from a large group of people who is very much against freedom and respect of other people.
But I got a little bit of one of those light at the end of the tunnel hope moments today. And I don't know, Bill, you may have seen this because you're kind of a political / legal junkie like me. But the first case of a vaccine mandate went up before the Supreme Court today. And Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Sorry.
You can call her Amy Coney Island. We all do. Yeah.
I prefer to other things. But
the Trump appointee, she refused to take the case, and none of the justices dissented to that. She turned down certiorari, or however you say it. I still haven't figured that one out. But yeah, she turned down cert on this case for an I think it was Indiana State or Indiana University, for their vaccine, vaccine mandate. That's hope. That is people drawing the line and enforcing the rule of law. And I know we've gotten way off, but I mean, Suicide Squad, I'm living in it. So,
but also,
the
United States doing strange things that kind of ties in with a plot point. So we do feed it.
Well, we can just jump right back into that. So, with Suicide Squad, I love this movie. I think this was excellent. I think James Gunn is a great director. I've loved him since Slither. Slither was, I think, the first James Gunn movie I saw, and it had everything if you like gory movies, or if you were a really big fan of Night of the Creeps from 1985, I think it was, because it's kind of a spiritual sequel to that. But I mean, this was great. Caleb, you mentioned the music. The music is very much, if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, I mean, it's got that same kind of importance to the soundtrack that just gives you the feelings that you're supposed to have, that that really play with what's going on screen. I think the acting choices, from the cast was great. You really felt a connection to almost everybody. Even some very minor characters that that popped up, like some of the crew in Amanda Waller's group behind the scenes in this in the control room at Belle Reve. You even had like some villains that I'm sure the majority of people seeing this movie have never seen, who aren't comic book fans or who don't read DC, have never heard of before, but actually having some really amazing moments. Polka Dot Man, I think, was a surprise hit for a lot of people, but just seeing things from his perspective, where he's talking about how he's crazy because, well, everybody's my mother and I hate my mother. Well, then you see things from his perspective, and holy shit, everybody is his mother.
And also how freaking overpowered he is in the movie. It's awesome. Like, I'm just like, what is this? Like, okay, like this guy's got to be the comedic relief. Like, right? He's the joke character. He's the kitsch. No, not at all. He's a badass of the highest proportion.
It's basically cosmic disintegration blobs. It's just, oh my god. Ratcatcher 2. Ratcatcher 2 was a great, wonderful sort of character who, out of nowhere, you feel this connection to her. She's kind of a little bit of that audience, entry point at times. But then also, because of her, you get one of the great scene stealers of the entire movie, Sebastian, who's just the cutest rat ever. And I love Sebastian. And I don't want anything to happen to Sebastian, because Sebastian's a wonderful little rat. It makes me happy every time he's on screen.
Yeah.
But
Steve,
and of course, Sylvester Stallone in one of his best turns.
If you do end up getting the Ratcatcher Funko Pop, you do get a tiny little Sebastian with it.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Now I need to.
Yeah.
Now I need to get that. It's just that, Everybody in this, and of course, like I had mentioned before, I mean, so many people die. So many of the main characters that you see on screen, dead, 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 dead. You know, the person that you think is going to be a villain, dead pretty much within 10 minutes of Harley Quinn meeting him. Like, I mean, just things that, you know, characters that pop up and disappear and get slaughtered pretty quick. I mean, it takes the first movie, the original, like the first Suicide Squad, David Ayer's Suicide Squad, where they kill off a couple of the villains that get picked. This one pretty much acts as an entire team,
right,
within the first 20 minutes. So yeah, pretty fantastic. Feel like your villain's dying, or your hero's dying.
Caleb, what do you want on it there?
Do what now?
Yeah, sure.
I didn't love this film in the way that Steve loved it. I was entertained though, and I'll say that because, and that's me saying I didn't love it is no reflection on how good the film was. I've said it before. Comedies aren't my cup of tea. Like you give me a movie like The Lighthouse, and I'm just eating it up. But you know, this was entertaining. It was fun. I'm a big fan of the trauma stuff that Steve was talking about from way back when. This to me, it had all the charm of the first Guardians of the Galaxy film, and all of the budget meets effects of a good trauma film. It's like if trauma had Disney money, this is what they could do, and that's literally, well, I mean, I guess WB money, but that's literally what they get. And so I really appreciated that because he was able to pull some of those. Look, it's a rated R film, and so he was able to pull some of those like gore moments or really dark themes, like Ratcatcher's father. Some of the issues with him, and I'm not going to spoil it, but you get to see moments that you're like, oh, like this is in a superhero movie, and I like some really dark stuff, but it doesn't lose its heart. And I was talking with a friend today, and it kind of dawned on me. I was like, this is the difference between the difference between this and a movie like Justice League. There's a lot of differences, but Justice League was dark and gritty, but it didn't have any joy. Whereas this is dark, it's gritty, it's grimy, it's hard, but even those hard moments are full of joy, and I really I appreciated that. Not to mention, like I literally laughed out loud multiple times. Like you said, first 10 minutes, did anybody check and see if Weasel could get in the water? like viscerally had a hard time catching my breath. I was laughing so hard. And my litmus test for superhero films, and I think a lot of people who are like us have this kind of same thing, is whether or not Roger enjoys them. Because my husband is like, he loves the movies, but he could give a shit less about comics. Like that's just not his cup of tea. He doesn't care about superheroes. He's not steeped in this world like we are. When he is enjoying himself and having fun and connecting with these characters, then regardless of if it's my thing, to me, that's a mark of a good film, especially with these big blockbuster superhero films. If they're pulling in people who are not like lifelong fans and who aren't catching even the Easter eggs that we all catch and love, if they're enjoying it and they're having fun, then to me it's a win, because that's what these blockbuster superhero films are about. Pulling in a mass audience and introducing these characters, C-list, D-list characters, and making people who don't particularly care about comics or superheroes on a daily basis fall in love with them. Like that lasting legacy, that to me is the mark of a good superhero film, and he loved it. So it was worth the price of admission. We'll see it again, and I'll laugh again.
Yeah, I came away, I think, somewhere between the two of you. I really enjoyed this film. I mean, was it going to be an Oscar contender? No, but that's not designed to be that kind of film. And I think you really hit on something, Caleb, is the joy and the fun level. I'm not a big gore guy. Like I could never sit through Cannibal Holocaust. I can never. There's certain films I can never sit through. But when you do have hyper violence like this, like, I think of what we've seen in the Kingsman films. I absolutely love that stuff. When it's heads blown up left and right. I love that stuff when it's just such a ridiculous, over the top degree that you can't help but laugh because of the ridiculousness of it.
That's the trauma of it all. Like
but
Toxic Avenger. Like I can watch that all day.
But you did hit on another point, was that there were these wonderful character moments. You mentioned with Ratcatcher, you mentioned with some of the other characters, even who ends up being effectively, and I hate to call him the villain, but the antagonist in Starro the Conqueror. Just a beautiful line that they provide. I was content to I was
happy floating in space
staring at the stars. Yeah. And you're like, oh,
shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking. And, and the bad guys really were, as always, the American government. The Americans are always the real bad guys behind everything.
But at the same token, they didn't let the film be ground down in, exposition or anything along those lines. Like just even the character of Bloodsport, British guy with a French or French Cajun last name, and there's no explanation why he's got a British accent. It's just you just accept it. We're not going to bog down on that. We're just going to tell the story and keep going and keep going. I thought it was such a well cast film, and I thought that the grouping that they have in this one works so much better than the first one.
Yeah.
It was just, the very concept of Suicide Squad is something organic coming from something inorganic because of just the weird groupings that happen. And Idris Elba was just such a great leading man. John Cena is such a great straight man comedian. Just used him perfectly. Everybody in it, was just at the top of their game, even if they were in fairly small parts. I loved Amanda Waller's team at home base and what they end up doing. There was just a lot of great touches, and even with the team there, showing that there is some humanity behind this person who's one of the most inhumane bureaucrats around. The human life means absolutely nothing, and you're never going to be able to surround yourself with people like that. Even the Trump administration didn't have that.
There's got to be some people who are like,
at some point I'm saying goodbye.
But I
just thought everything worked so well. It was the perfect director for this kind of, for this kind of conceit, and this really was the film we should have had from the get-go with the first one. This is the kind of territory that they should mind. I have to say I was very shocked at the beginning with the loss of Boomerang. Because that kind of set the template. All right, everything's off the table. It's like the first film, Slipknot was in it just enough to be toyetic, and this one, who cares? Boom.
Well, even Javelin, and this is the thing that I think it was always really interesting, going back and looking at it. Javelin had an extremely important part of this movie, even though he was one of the first ones to bite it, because it was his weapon that ends up making it through the whole film, and Harley uses it and ends up defeating, But anyway, we do have a comment here from DC Cathro. Hello, thank you for joining us. I never in a bazillion years thought I'd ever get to see Starro in a film. 100%. The first time I saw that preview months ago, and there's a giant purple tentacle, I was like, this can't be happening. Starro in a movie. Starro's in a movie. It's in a movie. Like, I just, a live action film. It is just shocking and wonderful, and I'm so happy that this movie got made. Well, and even after the reception of the first film.
What makes it work and what makes Starro work is the fact that the filmmakers, and I'm not just going to give James Gunn credit for this, I think it's an entire team, they embrace the fact that it's a superhero comic book movie. I mean, John Cena's outfit throughout the entire thing is straight out of the comics. It embraces the fact that this is like, that it is what it is, and you don't have to. And this is what I think some other filmmakers, even filmmakers who have made Disney movies that have been very successful, they shy away from the fact that these are out of pages of 4-color comics. Like these are like the history of stuff that was written for, not intellectual thought per se. It's just a lot of them are male hyper masculine fantasies and stuff like that. They're bright colors, they're ridiculous, but they embraced it, and they take the ridiculousness out and they just mold it into what it is, and that's why it works, and that's why you're going to get something like Starro being awesome, or like fucking Weasel.
Yeah, Weasel. Well, and you're right there. Like you take these sort of 4-color hypermasculine fantasies that have been, gracing the pages of DC Comics for some of these characters. I think are 40, 50 years old. But you give them some depth. You give them like they're in their colorful costumes. They're like larger than life, ridiculous, and yet there's a way that this film works. And I, credit to the actors, credit to the writers, credit to the director, and everybody who went into this, the costume and the hair and makeup to make these characters come to life, and then actually have you care about them. That's hard to do in a comic book movie that takes itself too seriously or seriously, period. But this was like from the get-go, hey, we're going to have fun with this. It's going to be crazy. We're going to have some dark and whatever moments, but these are people that we want you to care about. And actually, I think it was successful.
Yep. David Toby commented, okay, but what will the sequel be called? My money is on Not Another Suicide Squad. I think I have a great title for the next film.
Ooh.
The Suicide Squad.
If James Gunn is doing the sequel, yes, it probably would be the Suicide Squad.
But I think you hit on most of the major points there. Good cast, good conception. Ancillary issues like the music. I mean, it just all works really nicely. I am surprised and yet not surprised at the lack of box office between the availability on HBO Max and the continuing issues with the Delta variant. But I'm certain this film will find its audience, and I really hope we have another one, maybe with Jarro.
That would be a lot of fun.
There's like one little guy that survives. That would be so perfect. And also, stay to the end too, because there's a setup for something else.
There's a pre-credit scene and there's an after credit scene.
Yeah. Oh, you mean a mid-credit scene and not a post-credit scene, as I have been instructed.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, you do also have some really fun little cameos. I'm not talking about the main characters that actually have speaking roles. Taika Waititi shows up in this as well as Ratcatcher 1. Blink and you miss it. It's kind of a darker scene, but it's kind of like, wait a minute, that guy. Basically anybody who James Gunn has worked with, is going to be in this. Of course, you've also got Pom Klementieff, also from Guardians of the Galaxy, makes a very blink and you'll miss it cameo as well, in a strip club, dance bar, etc. But yeah, I mean, you've got some really fun little characters that pop in and out, or cameos that pop in and out, and you're like, you know what? That's
and we would be remiss if we didn't say shout out to Sylvester Stallone, because he's King Shark. Like, we haven't talked a lot about King Shark, but King Shark, it's hard to say that any one character, quote unquote, stole a show, because the chemistry between all of them was great. But King Shark had some of the best moments, as far as just like bringing the temperature in the room down. It just num.
One thing.
So good.
Also, there've been so many criticisms about the DC extended universe, and I just love that you can have a film along the lines of Shazam, which works comedically in many ways, and this film, couldn't be different. But their coexistence makes sense because of the complexities of a shared universe, and I just think from that aspect, it's a very worthy addition to the DCU. I still probably would rank Wonder Woman as the best of the films so far, but this gives me hope for what comes in the future as well.
Yeah.
Because I do think that there is a course correction towards joy. that we've seen, and there may be missteps like 84, but I like this path more than what we had before. Yeah.
And this one showed they didn't have to hew exactly to what came before. Suicide Squad exists as a movie. Harley Quinn is in it. Flag is in it. Boomerang's in it. Those same characters are in this movie too. But how they interact and what happens to them is completely independent of what happened in that other movie, and it's very much like how
you don't have to have come in. If you have seen Suicide Squad or Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of Harley Quinn, I can't just call it something else already.
Harley Quinn too.
Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. With that, if you saw those, great. If not, you're not at any disadvantage from a Harley Quinn standpoint
whatsoever.
Or Rick Flag in the case of Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to transition over to what Suicide Squad is based on. See, here's the Silver Age archives. Steve, does this look familiar?
Yes, it does.
Yes,
hey.
Because you have better ollies by me than I do. So we're going to talk some comic books, and we'll start with Steve. Steve, tell us about we can't even call them 4-color anymore, but tell us about a funny book that you're reading that you're digging.
Digitally colored, with a million different possible shades. So this is a graphic novel that was released just a couple weeks back called I Am Not Starfire. And I, of course, picked this up, knew nothing about it before, didn't even read the back of it. I was like, you know what? Hey, it's coming out from DC's, youth-geared trade imprint. I gotta get it. And this one, infinite possibilities, infinite frontier, everything's possibly canon, doesn't really matter. In this book, it's being told by the perspective of Mandy, the daughter of Starfire. Now, how did Starfire get a daughter? When did it happen? It doesn't matter. It's okay. This is Mandy. Mandy is the teenage daughter. She's goth. She's, broody. She's a bigger girl. And here she is basically next to this, gorgeous Amazonian, well, not Amazonian, I guess, Tamaranian princess of a mother. And of course, throughout the book, she really does have to kind of compare herself to her mom, and as does everybody else, because they all know her mother is Starfire of the Teen Titans /Titans and is a superhero and this gorgeous, goddess of a woman. And then here she is, Mandy. She's dark, she's gloomy, she's sarcastic, she's a teenager. And definitely not like her mom. But as the book goes on and Mandy has time to, explore her friendships, explore her crush on another girl in school that seems to be a lot more under the surface than she comes across with her gang of, ditto-head friends. She starts to realize that, maybe there's something else here. Maybe, I'm not just somebody living in the shadow of my mom, and there's something else that I can do other than just kind of like sticking myself, in like a gloomy hole and, quoting a lot of Cure lyrics or something. Like, she actually does start thinking about herself in a different way. And of course, this happens just in time for her good old aunt to show up and cause some problems. So, the climax of this book, of course, is very cool, where everything comes together: her friends, her feelings about herself, and of course, her Tamaranian heritage. So I really recommend it. It's great for all ages. I think maybe, junior high up for this rather than a DC Kids focused all ages book. But it's a lot of fun. And of course, it's written by Marco Tamaki, who is just killing it all over DC the past couple of years. I mean, she came in with a vengeance, and she is just putting stuff out left and right, and I love it. And it is art. The art is done by Yoshi Yoshitani, and it's a very interesting style, kind of semi manga, and also a little bit sort of that Cartoon Network style that occurs. But aged up a little bit. So it's a lot of fun, very colorful, very dynamic artwork. I love it. I think it's a lot of fun, and I would totally recommend this for junior high up. I think if you like the Titans, if you like Starfire, maybe you don't, and you want to see another perspective of it, check out I Am Not Starfire by Marco Tamaki and Yoshito Shitani.
Okay. As I flashed it, I do have it, but I haven't had a chance to read it, and I will at some point.
Yay.
Yeah, that was my major question: is who the hell this artist is, because I'd never heard of them.
They've done they've done a lot of covers.
Yeah.
For a couple different like IDW and DC and some other books. I'm not too sure. I don't think I've actually read anything else that they've done the full interiors on though. So
I do have a question though, since it does seem that this character, that Mandy would have a sounding board in Aunt Raven. Do the other Titans make an appearance?
They do make a cameo, but several cameo appearances, but they're not really the important part of this. In fact, that's
okay.
One of the plot points is that Mandy is just so over them and over her mother that she's like, I don't care if my mom's off fighting in some other galaxy with the Titans. I don't care. It's better if they're not around because I don't, whatever. They're just my mom's friends.
Okay.
So, and Raven, of course, she shows up in it, but she's not a major factor.
It's ancillary. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go over to Caleb. Caleb, tell us about something you're reading that you're enjoying.
Absolutely. Before, I wanted to ask a question though, Steve. So Marco Tamaki, kind of got her start in writing these kind of like YA graphic novels. Does this feel like she's kind of returned home in a sense?
I think so, with the added benefit of being able to use licensed DC characters, because a lot of her YA graphic novels previous to this were very heavily queer, very lesbian focused, and in this character, I'm not spoiling anything. Mandy is a queer character as well, and she's so comfortable writing this type of story, this type of character, but it's not like she wrote this story and then she just stamped some DC characters on top of it. This is definitely something that really, she was able to integrate both her other styles and her other books that she's kind of written, that kind of topic that she's written on, and really integrated into what DC has to bring to the table. So I really like the Mandy character, and I'm kind of hopeful that Mandy might show up in somewhere else in DC if possible.
That's why I asked, because listening to you, it sounds like this shares a lot of like shared thematics with like This One Summer. There was a lot of that same theme and tone to it. So that's awesome. I picked up also an OGN this week that it came out this year, so it's relatively new. It's from Top Shelf, and it's called The Delicacy. This is by James Albin. Don't know a lot of James Albin, not familiar with much of James' history, or if this is their first work or not. Have no clue. I need to do my due diligence and dive in, but just between finals and everything, I haven't had a chance to. I've been doing a lot of cooking. Like if you follow me on Facebook and stuff, you see a lot of like I'm posting. I'm turning into one of those people that takes pictures of their food and plasters it in places. So my apologies to everybody who that annoys. I understand, but I've been doing a lot of cooking because it's at the house and I can do it. So I picked this up. I was like, okay, this relates to food. I enjoy graphic novels that center around culinary identity. So I picked it up, and the book is that, but it's so much more. It goes above and beyond what I expected of it. It centers around these two brothers, and they live on an island off the coast of Scotland. Their mother is a hippie. She's very much into Wicca. She doesn't want electricity or internet. She shuns society and evil capitalist corporate culture. She doesn't want anything to do with it, and she's raised her kids, Tulip and Rowan, in this atmosphere. But one day a visitor comes to their fair little hamlet on the island, and it turns out that mom had a sister that she was estranged from, and a brother-in-law that she didn't even know about, and they've both disappeared. and no one knows what happens to them, but they've gone through the process of being declared deceased, and they left everything to Tulip and Rowan, their nephew. It's that they had no idea, they'd never talked to, in the will. And so this attorney comes to the island, and he's helping do all the walking through what they've been bequeathed, and misses the last ferry out of town. So they take him to the local hotel, and he sits down. Well, Tulip, the younger of the son, walks in and goes back to the kitchen and just whips up an amazing, delicious meal. Like, this guy had no idea he was about to get like world-class cooking. He's like, okay, crap town, cold island, everything's wet. It's Scotland. This is just going to be some haggis and some bad taste in my mouth. Turns out it's delicious. And so he starts talking to Tulip, and he's like, well, how did you learn to do this? And it turns out a world-class chef from London had lived on the island, taught him how to do everything. His brother is a masterclass gardener back at the hut, and together they're this pretty dynamic team. But it's being lost because nobody comes to this island. So the lawyer plants a seed. He's like, well, why don't I know your mom doesn't want you to. I know she's telling you, never go to London, just shun that life. But why don't you go check out this house that you've been left before you sell it? Why don't you go see what this is about? Get a taste of the city, and consider doing something with it. Like maybe open up your own restaurant if you sell it. So Rowan Tulip goes back to Rowan, and he's like, hey, like listen to this plan. What should we do? And of course, mom hits the fan, but they decide to go. They're both adults, so they go to London. And when they're at London, they decide to go with it. They take this house, which is on the outskirts of London, has some land, and they build a garden. They go and they fill out the paperwork. They find a spot. They're going to open up a restaurant here. And Tulip especially has got dreams of grandeur. Like, he's going to fix London with this. They've been eating overprocessed, pesticide riddled food, and he's gonna fix everything with this great taste. I don't mean the term. It's a little bit derisive, but hipsterish. Like, he's gonna go with everything's organic and stuff like that. And it doesn't work at first, but then people start catching on. The brother goes, and Rowan lives at the shack. He's very isolated. He doesn't talk to anybody. He doesn't venture out. He just stays there with his garden, and he's lonely. He misses his brother, and the brother, Tulip, doesn't come around very often. He misses his mom. Mom doesn't call because mom doesn't like phones, because phones give you like alien brainwaves or something. I don't know. So he gets a little lonely. But as he's gardening, he finds a spot, and these mushrooms are growing, and these weird fungi that he has he can't place them. But he's willing to test the water, so he cooks one up, and it's delicious. Like, it changes. It's almost psychedelic in the way that it affects him, but it's not those kind of mushrooms. He's not getting high. It's just the flavor and the taste is so intense that it just opens up a whole culinary universe. So he gives it to his brother, who goes back to London, starts cooking with it. All of a sudden, he's getting world-class foodies and Instagram, whatever they're called, the influencers coming into his shop in London. And it becomes a hit. Like, all of a sudden he's right up there with Emerald. He's legendary in the world. Like, he is the new culinary hot shit in the world, and he's opening up spots in New York and everything. But these mushrooms that are doing all of this, there's a limited supply, right? Like, they slow down and start dwindling. And it's at that point that the book becomes a murder mystery. And I'm not going to go past that, because I hope that piques your interest enough to go, how did this go from being a story about these two wonderkin children who come into the big city and blow up? What's their relationship as brothers like? What is their how does it affect them, to turn into they're losing themselves in separate ways, not only to the business, to their dreams, the fulfillment of their dreams, it actually works to their detriment, but also how that they start separating from one another and from the people that they used to be. I can't say enough good things about James Albin's art. I think you can see it. It's kind of for those of you who are watching, it's borderline impressionistic. He lets your mind fill in the gaps. It's not trying to be hyper detailed. He has a lot of like watercolor, almost a Crayola feel to some of his pages. But the way that he blends his hues, it's deceptive, because you're thinking, okay, this is kind of simplistic artwork, but then you start looking at the detail of pages, and he doesn't just do black lines. He'll use red lines when a person's supposed to feel the same way to just outline their face. The way that he just, he can put emotion down on the page without using a lot of hyper detailed activity is stunning. And look, Top Shelf has produced some great works in the past, and I think they've got another hit on their hands if enough people can hear about this book. And I should say, shout out to our friend David Price, who also has read this book and talked about it, and is the one he's how I found out about it. Mm-hmm. And it's a stunning work. It speaks to both the kid in me who grew up in the country, in the garden, and dreamed of living in the big city. It speaks to the part of me that maybe gets a little too bougie at times and forgets where I came from, as my husband likes to remind me. But at the end of the day, it's all about. It finds a weird spot because it's not about saying that, hey, you shouldn't follow your dreams, but it's also about how, if you follow your dreams in a way that's not responsible, it's going to ruin your life if you don't put brackets on yourself, if you don't put boundaries in place for yourself. You never know what you're capable of, and it could drive you from cooking to murder. So check this out if you haven't. It's stunning, and twists like you wouldn't believe. Like, out of a book like this, I had no idea. Just plot twists left and right, just to throw you off of where it's headed. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I did peek on the Top Shelf website, and it appears that James Alban has two other works through Top Shelf: Her Bark and Her Bite, and A Shining Beacon. And he was born in Cambridge, England, but lived most of his life in northeast Scotland. And seems he has some other work outside of that, but that's I've never heard of that creator before.
Brand new to me, and just knocked it out of the park. Stunning work, truly stunning work.
Looks like almost like colored pencil in some of those pages that you showed. And I'm wondering if it is. I know there are some comic artists that do swear by that, or marker even, and they do produce some stunning work. So
that's where I said the Crayola hues come in, because you're like, it looks like if colored pencil could be washed. Some of his panels look like that, so almost like graphite meets gray wash in some sense, if you're thinking about gray tones. But yeah, it's very much that colored pencil Crayola style, but it blends in a way it looks like it was fluidic. So I can't. I'd be so curious to talk to him to find out what their process is, if they even share that process. But it's just, I love impressionism, and I love it when comic artists don't feel the need to make things photorealistic when but they don't slack on the detail. Like, he's not leaving anything off the page in works like this, but they just fill the page with just what they need to give you the texture and the flavor. But they let your mind do the work of filling in, well, what might this person look like in real life? Like, what are their features telling me? What can one line do to affect the mood that I'm seeing on the page, the attitude, the atmosphere of the page? It's just that artistry. As somebody who, I'm not an artist. I just don't. My brain doesn't think that way. I can't do it. Or at least I'm not inclined to do it or to practice enough to do it. I'm always fascinated by what the artist is attempting to tell me, and what they want to convey through the use of color, through the use of minimalism to a point. Not that this is minimalism, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about a book that came out from a publisher that Steve has talked about a number of times, and that's AWA Upshot. And the book I want to talk about is Not All Robots, written by Mark Russell with art by Mike Deodato Jr. and Lee Loffridge. And this book takes place in the year 2056. And in the future of 2056, the robots have taken over, sort of. Mankind has screwed a lot of things up, and most of civilization lives in what they call bubble cities. And what we were exposed to here is Bubble Atlanta. and we are with the family known as the Walters, and the Walters have a robot that's assigned to them who does the work. None of the humans really work anymore. All the labor is done by robotic functions. And Razorball, they all have robot names, is the family robot, and he doesn't really have a relationship with the family. When he comes home from his job at the factory, he goes right to the garage and just doesn't have anything to do with them. And where we're at, this has been 10 years since we've had the disasters that have led to the air being spoiled and the necessity to live in a bubbled atmosphere, and because of advancements in artificial intelligence and robotic automation, this is where we're at. They're also in the process of creating something known as the mandroids, which will be much more human looking robots. So the robots that are currently in society are starting to get worried about, hey, does this mean we're being replaced? And if we are being replaced, what's going to happen to us? Are we just going to be shut down, be decommissioned? Razorball is having a lot of problems because there is an empathy switch in him, and it's on, and he's having difficulty coming to terms with a lot of the feelings he has. And apparently a lot of the other robots are having that too, because of robotic interference. Another bubble city, and it's I'm gonna not spoil it because it makes perfect sense which one gets it, eventually meets its demise. The human inhabitants do, because of the manipulation of the atmosphere caused by the robot overguards. And I have to say, it's not necessarily a book I think I'm going to stick with, because y'all know how I don't cotton to post-apocalyptic stuff and things where humans have become obsolete. That's their cousin shaking hands with them. I have to be in a particular mood to really enjoy a book like this. But it is Mark Russell, so it is biting and it is sharp. And the art by Diodato, I mean, he is somebody like the Immermans. He adapts his style to the current project. And this isn't Cheesecake Wonder Woman. There's some really, really beautiful and distinct stuff going on here. Characters, both on the robotic and the human side, seem very interesting. A lot of the depictions of culture and where we're headed, if this is what happens to us, are very interesting. I just think I have to be in the right mind to explore a book like this. It's a 5-issue miniseries, so I imagine what I might do is wait for it to be collected, not meaning that I didn't enjoy it. It's just not something that I necessarily would gravitate towards naturally. But I do like Russell's work. This definitely is, certainly in the wheelhouse of, almost in some ways like, a mirror universe Flintstones, taking some from the Stone Age to the Space Age, I guess you could say. So that's, I wish I were more enthusiastic about it, but I think it's more, it's me, it's not you, not all robots. I mean, it's me. I do have some hangups that prevent me from enjoying it more than I should, and that's the book that I read, and which I will recommend to people who aren't wired the way I am. If that makes sense.
I like what you said there. It's Mark Russell. Mark Russell, very famously for DC, did the Flintstones. And if this is the sort of the flip side, do you think maybe, I don't know, maybe he says this in the back matter, he was thinking about doing this for the Jetsons? Because
no, actually, what this actually came out of was there was a very short-lived response to the Me Too movement of Not All Men, and that was the germ for this.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But I understand your line of thinking, given
because I can see
Now,
Razorball, Rosie the robot. I mean,
yeah.
Now I want
Bubble
Mark Russell to write the Jetsons real bad. Yeah, very, very few people working in, comics, prose, or whatever understand satire the way that Mark Russell does.
Yeah.
Satire's like, some people say it's dead, but then Mark Russell just does Mark Russell stuff.
But at the same time, I have to say, out of the stuff that I've read from him, again, Snagglepuss and Prez, and apart from the Lone Ranger, which was a weird fit, this one veers somewhat far away enough from satire to walk in its own shoes. And if you read it, you'll know what I mean. That there's not, there isn't a nudge.
That's exactly the way I felt about his Red Sonja series.
Yeah. That he can fire on different cylinders.
Yeah.
And if you liked his Red Sonja theories, I think you'd like this.
Yeah.
Because it's taking a concept that you think will go one way, and I know the end result of the Red Sonja that he wrote, and there's a few deviations, and I imagine the next 4 issues in the 5-issue one would be very exciting. I just know I'm better served myself by doing it in one shot instead of getting it month after month.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, like the Upshot trade prices, they haven't been outrageous, right? They've been like 10 or like or following the Image, like $14.99 if they do go to 2. So so I think that's something I probably would pick up, and that way I treat myself correctly. So.
My buddy Matt, we read this book, and my buddy Matt made a really interesting point. It's kind of odd seeing like this level of humor juxtaposed with like Mike Deodato Jr.'s art, like current style. They're almost two. Like he says, there's almost two ends of a pole that and somehow it works really well. It's.
Yeah, Steve, I know you've gotten so much Upshot stuff. Did you get this?
It's sitting in my pull box, which I haven't had a chance to get to Charlotte to pick up. But I've been reading every AWA series, with the exception of Archangel 8, and no, I read Red Border as well. But I mean, I just love everything they put out, whether it's the superhero shared universe or whether it's the unique, creator focused minis. They've all been enjoyable in very different ways. It's every genre really.
And the back issue ad for the Telepass has made me interested. The AMS
that's part of the
and
shared,
Steve Epting. I think I'm going to be grabbing that too now, just on that ad.
That's good. It's I've been really enjoying Moths and the Resistance book that's out now as well. We do have a couple comments here. John Runyon. Hey, John. Rosie's got to be so tired of doing those Jetson dishes. # free Rosie. Yes, of course.
Mr. J. That was the original Mr. J. Yeah.
And then David mentions, I mean, the idea that satire is dead in and of itself breathes life into satire again. Yeah. But, I think Mark Russell, the fact that he's going from satire to other projects means that he doesn't get burnt out. There's only so many snarky things you can say about the Bible and or modern politics and the pursuit of money, like Billionaire's Island, without having to kind of clear your palate a little bit. But I'm looking forward to reading it.
Okay. All right. Well, tell us about something else you read.
So real quickly, one book that I've been following, it's in its 3rd issue. Just came out this week. It's called The 6 Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton. And oh my God. I mean, it's written by Kyle Starks, who, if you've never read any of his stuff, Sex Castle being the first book I ever read of his Rick and Morty stuff, basically so much that he's done over the past 5 years. I have to say, if you haven't read anything else, pick this book up and you'll get right away what he's about. He is a very strong humorist. He loves action and he knows how to write action. And you put those two together and you get an awesome sort of almost an 80s flashback, kick-ass, hilarious, fun, snappy dialogue kind of book. And the premise of this series is that Trigger Keaton, from the title, and actually, here's the headshot of him signed by Trigger Keaton from 1988. Is a action movie star, kind of in the vein of maybe a Chuck Norris type, who made it really big in doing kung fu and action type movies. But he was a very well known asshole. 100%. Everyone hates him. Everyone hates working with him. He was a monster of a human being. And in the first issue, he ends up very dead, very murdered. His 6 sidekicks are his co-stars who unfortunately had, when they were starring with him, were severely abused verbally or physically, or were the unfortunate victims of his really terrible history working with Hollywood and producers, promising careers cut short because he caused their shows to be canceled or the movies to be junked. But they get together, all 6 of them, including his latest one, Miles Wen, to figure out who murdered Trigger Keaton. And of course, they all kind of join together for their own reasons. And it makes it a little bit of a murder mystery, sort of. And they, of course, all kind of come together, have their own strengths and weaknesses, and are just hilarious personalities when working together. So I really recommend it. The 6 sidekicks of Trigger Keaton. It's a blast to read. It's fun. It's a quick read, and it makes you just hang on for the next month, waiting for the next issue to come out. Really excited to keep reading this. So
cool.
Put out by Image, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. If you liked Rock Candy Mountain, him and Chris Schweitzer, the same people who made this book.
Chris Schweitzer. Oh, his art is so much fun.
Yeah,
it's just some of the most lined faces ever, but it just feels perfect for this type of story. Really great panel work and just expressions. Just a lot of fun. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Rob Guillory a little bit. If you like his artwork from Chew and his own book, which I've totally blanked on right now.
All right, Caleb, do you have another book to talk about?
I do, and this is going to be another quick one. So pick this up. It's about 2 weeks old now. It's called The Me You Love in the Dark. It's by Scotty Young, Jorge Corona, and Jean-Francois Bellew with Nate Picos on the letters. Same team from Middle West. So if you enjoyed Middle West, this is a way different book. But if you enjoyed Middle West, you know what you're getting into. The premise of the book is there is a young artist who has kind of had her moment. She's bloomed. The world knows who she is now, and she's rented this old haunted house because she is having artist block and she can't make anything. So she's going to go live by herself in this haunted house. It's going to be her muse. She's going to be inspired. She's going to make gorgeous, dark and troubled art. It's going to be her next big thing. Except the writer's block sticks around, and she is having not writer's block, artist block, and she's having trouble putting anything on the canvas. And throughout the book, as she's day goes by, nothing happens. Her agent calls her, is like, "Hey, what's happening? You gotta produce stuff if you want to keep doing stuff. Keep my gallery open, or I'm gonna drop you." And throughout the whole thing, she's talking to the ghost, and nothing's happening. It's very funny. It's like, okay, this house isn't really haunted. She doesn't really believe the bullshit, but she's gonna do it anyway. Until the last 3 pages where the ghost starts talking back, and it gets crazy from there. She is not prepared to deal with the fact that what she thought was just a tale, was an urban legend, is really true, and is now communicating back with her, and she doesn't know what she's going to do because she's just there with a ghost. Fun stuff. I love Jorge Corona. I love what he does on the page. It's absolutely stunning. Jean-Francois Bellew's colors are as stunning as always. If you've read I Hate Fairyland, or most of Scotty Young's stuff, Jean-Francois is the colorist on most of his stuff. Killer book. I have no idea if this is going to have the heart and the gut punch that Middle West does, but I have faith that it's going to be something close, and I'm in for the ride.
Okay, great. Well, we have to talk some superheroes on this show. So I may as well go back to the first. Now, originally I was going to talk about a number of Superman books, but we are kind of pressed for time here. So just quickly, there's a lot going on written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, which includes the main action title and this incredible Action Comics Annual 2021. I don't know. It pops into my head, which features the future state characters of the L family and gives one particular character a much nicer, happy ending than you got in the future state. Superman and the Authority, the new miniseries, which is going to be Grant Morrison's farewell to DC Comics, at least for a time. So the first issue is out. I think maybe the second issue came out today.
I didn't get it. I don't
possibly,
think.
or maybe next week. Anyway, so this was a very interesting story, which basically was focused on Manchester Black, but very encouraged by that. But the main book I want to talk about is the first issue of Superman, Son of Kal-El. And judging by Steve's reactions, he read this and really enjoyed this. Written by the amazing Tom Taylor and with art by John Timms. And this follows John Kent as he takes the mantle of Superman while Superman is dealing with stuff that's going on out in outer space on War World, though the comics really haven't caught up to that. So I just wish there was a little more editorial control there at DC, but what the hell. And what we have here is starts off with a revised origin for John Kent. Now that we aren't bound by Convergence post Dark Knight's Metal, that we do have a different universe unfolding, and we see the birth, and what a cute baby too. Isn't that cute? Of the birth of John Kent with the amazing image of Batman and Wonder Woman standing guard at the Fortress of Solitude, making sure everything goes well for the birth for Superman and Lois. And so John is now patrolling. He's, and taking his first steps in actually being Superman instead of Superboy. This brings him in contact with a person who has demonstrated metahuman abilities and has started forest fires. And instead of a really tragic ending for that, we see him dealing with the individual with reason and compassion, which is something naturally that his father is known for. And in doing so, he may have put this individual in a different kind of danger. Again, we were just, tapping on the dangers of the U.S. government right now, and this definitely feeds on this. And I have to say, some of the best Superman stories are written by non-Americans, and with Tom Taylor having a more global eye on the character, it's very refreshing, I have to say. John Timms, just beautiful art. That shot of John looking back down in space plays kind of like a zero issue instead of a number one. We don't necessarily feel like we're stepping right into the adventure. It feels more that we're at the preamble of the adventure. I also really enjoyed in the conception of John in this book that there's as much emphasis on him being the son of Lois Lane as there is on him being the son of Superman, and what that might entail for him. And he states his reason is trying to find truth, justice, and a better world, and this may bring him in conflict with individuals that his father never really had a contentious relationship with. I am so excited for where this book goes. I was excited for this book from no matter what. It's still a shame that Tom Taylor hasn't really written Superman with quotes around him. Just these really like twisted versions of him and things like Injustice and stuff. But to be entrusted with this legacy, and also some beautiful writing from Tom Taylor about him getting into the character, that he was raised by a single mother, and Superman was actually one of the biggest male role models he had growing up. Definitely read the back matter on this. It's very touching. But I am so excited for this series now, where I was mildly, very excited. I'm now like crazy. Very excited. So, Steve, since you read it, anything you want to add about it?
Oh well, you can't forget the cameo there from Damian Wayne,
Yeah.
as Robin. Just that great sequence that sort of I'm having a test, I have to pass this assassin test or whatever,
which is what's going on in the Robin
Assassin.
title,
which is what's going on in the Robin title. And
title.
here's Superman showing up, just kind of like getting in the middle of it just to have a conversation, which Damien's just sort of like, this stuff is happening, I'm just going to keep fighting and doing whatever, and then we'll just keep talking. And that was such a great moment that brought some of the humor and the playfulness of the Super Sons to a title that might be a bit more serious, because as you mentioned, like, Jonathan's kind of looking at things a little bit different from the way Superman Kal-El did. So if he wants to actually be a little bit more pragmatic, like Lois would be, he has the power to do so, and that might put him in big direct conflict with a lot of status quo situations that Superman stays away from. So very, very, very cool.
I also love the way Tom Taylor writes superhero dialogue.
Yeah.
Because we start with the flashback of this alien invasion happening, and like, it's an alien invasion according to Superman, and everybody else is telling him, it's an attempted alien invasion. Just go do your thing. We got this.
Yep.
So Caleb, did you read this too?
I don't. I need to. It's Tom Taylor, so it's on my list of stuff. It's just not. I really don't have an excuse for not picking it up because I know it's going to be great. There's some small seed in me that, even though I know they're doing great things with these characters, I'm so Super Sons is so beloved to me that I hate that they're growing up. I don't know if that's like, I don't know if there's a word for that phenomenon or not. I love these characters, and I know that it's just kind of like Hulk, like a lot of the Young Avengers. Like, I love them, and I hate that they're growing up, but I also love that they're growing up. So I haven't read it yet. It's on my list of things to do because it's going to be like you said, it's anything that makes you giddy, I'm going to get. And because you're adorable.
It gave me goosebumps. So. I don't like, I haven't read a Superman book that gave me like the feels for a long time. And this was great. We do have some comments.
Yep.
John Runyon actually mentioning regarding the Superman book and how awesome it is, not opposite it is. What is the opposite of La Bamba on the Bill rating scale?
Oh, geez, we'll have to think about that.
It's not La Bamba. What's the opposite of that to make it a Bamba?
The only thing I could, this is so embarrassing. Growing up in the 80s, there was a lot of quasi-Val talk, no matter where you grew up. And I think one word that definitely survives is rad. And one phrase that I used to have when I was happy was, I'm like Mr. Good Life. So that I don't know if that's quite it, but I have to think about this because it doesn't have quite the either the cadence or the bombast of La Bamba. I'll have to think about that. That was the first one that came to mind, though. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we got to find something that's meme worthy. For that sort of like.
The only thing I did want to say, Caleb, is I can understand your concerns about that. I certainly have had situations where I've preferred the younger versions of certain characters. I kind of never wanted the Titans to at least past 22.
Right.
But at the same token, Taylor has their voices down so well that I don't think you're going to be disappointed at all in the execution.
Well, and what I love, it's not necessarily as a concern as some weird, like, it's like nostalgia, but it can't be nostalgia because it's new. Like they're new characters, but it's just like I love that book so much. It's just like, like they're gonna, like, your kids are gonna grow up. It's a thing, and you just don't want to lose the childish wonder that they have. Yeah. Same thing that Tom Taylor did with Honey Badger over in Wolverine. Very similar. They're in very good hands. And I've just got to like rip the Band-Aid off and accept it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. We didn't talk about news. Maybe another time we'll talk about the Substack stuff.
Yeah.
That was a big thing to hit this week. Yeah.
We'll do that next
All
time.
right. Do we have any other comments there, Steve, or was it's kind of nice to end on John's one there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start wrapping the show up, and when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week segment. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him, kind of like this. Woof. I've never demonstrated it before. There you go. And we do something very similar here where we signify something that we think should garner your attention, whether it be another comic or a film or a TV program or a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, or in this case, viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your Wolf of the Week?
Well, my Wolf of the Week, of course, because I'm a TV junkie. This week, I don't know what it was, what was in the water with a lot of the streaming service programmers, but this is like new TV bonanza for people who love comic series. I mean,
and returning, even outside of that, returning shows that are
returning shows,
too.
Riverdale's back, but Stargirl started back on the CW this time, not on HBO Max. You've got What If over on Disney Plus. You've got, if you're a Star Trek fan, Lower Decks. If you enjoyed the cartoon series, Lower Decks is back on Paramount Plus. Or if you're like me, and I know Bill, and probably lots of other people who watch this show or listen to it, Titans just dropped today on Hobomax, and just for a surprise, because they're just trying to be nice to us, they dropped 3 new episodes. So the first 3 episodes of season 3 of Titans came out today. I only had time to watch the first episode, and I almost forgot how much I enjoyed the show. It's definitely not everybody's cup of tea. I get that. Sometimes a little bit more adult or cruder versions of the Titans, not everybody's super into that. But the first episode really throws you right into the mix with a sort of a reinterpretation of Death in the Family, reintroduces Barbara Gordon, which is very interesting. There's a lot of cool stuff that's in this. Plus, you get to see some fun Beast Boy and Superboy and Crypto action, which we love Crypto from season 2 as well. He's a very good boy. He's a good boy. So Thursdays, any time of day on Thursday, if you have the HBO Max app, or I believe Netflix outside of the US, we'll have Titans. So, yay, welcome back,
there
Titans.
You go. All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your Wolf of the Week?
Yeah, number one, you saying wolf is my Wolf of the Week. No, my Wolf of the Week goes out actually to a writer, and that writer is Stephanie Phillips. And if you know Stephanie Phillips, maybe you've read The Butcher in Paris that she did at Dark Horse, or you've read a number of the other books that she's written. Maybe you read her little short story that she did in Wonder Woman Gold that came out, I think, 2 weeks ago now. So a few weeks ago, as Twitter is wont to do, a troll went after Stephanie Phillips and basically said, it's SJWs like you killed comics in cold blood. So Stephanie Phillips took that and she said, "Oh, me? I killed comics in cold blood? Oh, that's interesting. I'm gonna make t-shirts." And so she turned it into, I hope you all can see this.
That is so awesome.
Yeah, she turned it into a t-shirt and she sold them, and she gave all the proceeds to the Trevor Project. And so she didn't, I'm assuming covered costs, but everything else went to the Trevor Project. So took an attack, because, she has the audacity to make comics under the influence of vagina, and turned it into something incredible. And so, like, I've been on the Stephanie Phillips train for a hot minute. I'm enjoying A Man Among Ye, which is a pirate story. But this past week, some big news dropped that Bill mentioned earlier, and a bunch of prominent writers, one of which is writing Batman, James Tynion IV, jumped to this thing called Substack and is no longer going to be writing the main Batman title. And so everybody's wondering, oh, who's writing Batman? And we had this conversation in our little group thing, and Stephanie Phillips at the same time said, "I can't wait to tell you about this DC project that I'm doing." And we were all like, "It wouldn't really. She's still a newcomer. I don't know if she'd be writing Batman." Well, we found out today that she's not. She's writing Wonder Woman. So her and Mike Hawthorne are going to be the next art creative team as far as lines and words go on the next Wonder Woman. Diana's my girl at DC. I'm stoked. I love Stephanie Phillips's work. I think she does a great job. She's interesting. She's new. As far as new writers go, she's kind of having this comeuppance moment. So between that news today and me getting this shirt in a few days ago, I'm just on a Stephanie Phillips train. So woof to that woman. Just
right.
all about her.
I do have to ask though, with what happened, how quickly the Izod-ish Loki Gator shirts went. Those shirts still available?
These I don't know. I'll check. You can find the link on her Twitter feed.
Okay.
Or you can just look it up. So it should be, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Because now I've got to get one too.
Yeah. I think that's our next. I never promised you a rose garden there.
Oh, yeah. We all show up wearing the shirt. It's like, well, this shirt. One thing I did have to mention, Kid, I just found out today she's a Muay Thai expert.
Yeah.
Man, if anybody could kill comics, she could, and probably like a kick to the neck would do it. But it's pretty awesome.
Okay, for my woof of the week, if you've ever seen pictures of my home video collection, you know that I own everything that possibly could be owned relating to the DC Comics characters, which naturally includes Batman the Animated Series. Now, the downside to getting stuff when you do is I don't wait for the Blu-ray, because I got these before Blu-rays even existed, all of the sets. What's the copyright on this here? 2004. So the initial sets for these came out in 2004, 2005. Since that time, they've put out a Blu-ray collection collecting the entire series. And something that I can't necessarily justify a new price, the price point for an entire series, but I still kills me that I don't have is some of the bonus materials. Fortunately, if you ever follow DC Comics YouTube page, they are excellent about eventually posting a lot of the bonus material that appears in the Blu-ray. And they did that for this as well, for a 139-minute documentary about, let me correct that. It's a 79-minute documentary about the history and the creation of Batman the Animated Series, called The Heart of Batman. It has interviews with all the people that you would expect that were involved in the creation. Naturally, Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Andrea Romano, Tara Reid, other actors, Mark Hamill, Alan Brenner, who is one of the principal writers outside of Dini. But it's very nice to see the importance that they provide in the documentary to Eric Radomski, who was Dini's co-producer, and also Gene McCurdy, who was the head of Warner Animation at the time. And you go into the weeds with this, really, really deep about the creation of it, and how the success of Animaniacs and Tiny Toons Adventures led into this. And these guys were so happy to do something that wasn't those two shows. It's one of those things, like, you put it on, and even though it's over an hour and a half, you feel like it's like 10 minutes. It just goes by because you're enjoying it so much. I'm so happy they put that available, and it's on YouTube, and it's for free. And that's the Heart of Batman documentary on regarding Batman the Animated Series. That's my wolf of the week.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Paul Dini Batman Omnibus just came out too. So
did it?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a great issue that's part of his detective run. Do you guys remember the one with Tim Drake and Joker having a laugh off when he was captured? It's a great sequence. It's a really great sequence.
Sadly, I haven't read any detective from that era. So.
Oh, okay. Well, if you ever go there, you have something to look forward to. All right, so we're going to wrap this one up. Again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram and Substack. No, as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, please do so by downloading us through iTunes, listening us through Stitcher Radio, or catching us on many of the other podcatching platforms. And if you are watching this, it probably is a Facebook Live. Yes, leader, I will tell them everything. And if you are watching it later through our YouTube channel, please like our channel and leave a comment because we greatly appreciate that. So until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Woof.